It's back, Michigan. The vaunted COVID-19 lockdown has struck again. This past Wednesday marked yet another phase of a state of Michigan shutdown thanks to this menacing pandemic, with new limits on indoor residential gatherings and bars and restaurants closed for indoor dining, meaning no more draft beer. I personally welcome you back to another episode of Isolated Quarantine High Hell. Thankfully, one thing that was not shut down over this past weekend was your Detroit Lions, as our beloved Kitty Cats clawed their way to a 30-27 win against that football team from Washington that doesn't even have a nickname. With their next 3 games, all against teams with a 500 record or worse, can the Leos make one final push for an NFC wildcard and preserve the jobs of Ned Poop-Tricia and Boob Quinn? Or will their hopes get squashed like a squirrel on the side of the highway? We'll discuss. Also, we talk NBA draft and the very active Detroit Pistons, the colossal dumpster fire of Jim Harbaugh in Ann Arbor, plus much more right now on the Week 11 edition of DSE. Recorded from Bank of America Stadium in Charlotte, North Carolina, this is Detroit Sports Extreme. Here now is your new voice for Detroit Sports, Johnny Bakerstone. Happy weekend greetings, Motor City, and welcome to the Week 11 edition of DSE Quarantine Style. As I'm sure you're all aware, we've been put under a 3-week lockdown, and possibly longer. But your friends here at DSE look to alleviate at least some of your frustration and boredom, starting with this week's show. We are coming at you from outside of Gate A at sunny Bank of America Stadium in the Queen City of Charlotte, where the face masks and hand sanitizer are aplenty, and where I just downed 20 sweet Carolina barbecue wings and 4 old fashions. And later this weekend, the 3-7 Carolina Panthers host our beloved Detroit Lions in yet another kitty cat fight to the death. We also have much to discuss in the NBA draft, where the Pistons made a couple of trades and drafted 4 players. So let's get right into it. Week 10 Recap. Joining me for this segment will once again be my former partner in crime at 1660 The Wave, Candy Copperfield. Good morning, Candy, and happy quarantining to you, sir.
Good morning, Johnny. For the next few weeks and possibly longer, I'll be hanging out with my 3 best friends in the whole wide world, Jack, Jim, and Jose, baby.
And how is that different from any other week, Candy? Don't let the record of the Washington football team fool you, sports fans. They boast one of the best passing defenses in the NFL, but don't tell that to John Matthew Stafford. Despite suffering a partial tear in his throwing hand thumb in the first quarter, that sounds painful, Stafford torched Washington for 276 yards, 3 touchdowns, and no turnovers, leading the Lions to amazingly their first home win in 385 days. Woohoo! My God! Think about all the things we could do 385 days ago that we can't do today.
Well, $8 draft beers at B-Dubs are the first thing to come to my mind, Johnny. A week after getting scolded on social media for his 2-interception red zone mini haha meltdown, number 9 rejoins the good graces of most Lions fans, at least for now. But as always, the Cats didn't make it easy on themselves, did they, Johnny?
No, they did not. After building a 24-3 third quarter advantage, we all thought it. I thought it. You thought it. Tom Selleck thought it. Even my ex-wife's pet goldfish thought it. How are the Lions going to blow yet another second half lead?
And which ex-wife are you referring to, Johnny?
Shut up, Candy. And lo and behold, in quicker fashion than a Matt Poop Trisha fart, Alex Smith and the nameless wonders from Washington scored on 3 consecutive drives to tie the game at 24. And after tying the game again at 27 with only 16 seconds left, overtime looked as inevitable as an I-96 rush hour traffic jam.
You said it, Johnny.
But thanks in large part to a late hit by Chase Young, thanks Chase, you bonehead, Stafford drives the Lions 34 yards in only 15 seconds, setting up a game-winning 59-yard field goal from Matt Prater as time expired. As we saw earlier this season against Chicago, Arizona, and Atlanta, when he is tasked to run a 2-minute offense, Stafford is as good as it gets in the NFL. You have to wonder why the Lions don't run more hurry-up sets throughout the course of a game. But hey, what do I know? The win keeps the job statuses of Poop Trisha and Quinn on a DMC hospital ventilator, and the team looks to once again hit the 500 mark this Sunday in the Queen City of Uptown Charlotte for a battle to the pussycat death between the Lions and Panthers. Meow!
Week 11 Preview.
It feels like deja vu all over again, but the Lions enter Week 11 and beyond with yet another golden opportunity to scratch and claw their way right back into the NFC playoff picture. I know you're holding your breath waiting for it, but get this. Sunday, our friendly felines visit a 3-7 Carolina Panther team that may be without both their starting quarterback and starting running back. More on that in a moment. The Pussycats then feast on a 2-7 Texans team on Turkey Day in Week 12, and lastly in Week 13, travel to the Windy City to play a Bears team that's lost 4 games in a row. And yes, Matt Nagy still looks like a goofball in that visor of his. Now, even if they somehow manage to win all 3 games and fill our souls with a false sense of hope, I'm sure they'll find a way to kick our nuts right back into the Motor City abyss, but it's still worth bringing up. Matthew Stafford followed up his 2-interception Minnehaha meltdown with a rock-solid performance against the NFL's top passing defense in Week 10. And despite suffering from both neck and thumb injuries in each of the past 2 weeks, he'll be ready to rock and roll this week in sweet Carolina barbecue country. Barbecue. The father of 3 and husband of social media darling Kelly has been up and down the entire season. But after lighting the NFL's ass on fire throughout the first half of last season, it's fair to say he's been a disappointment. I will say, though, number 9 has been awesome this season late in games, driving the Lions down the field while either trailing or tied on 4 separate occasions, and leading them to victory in 3 of them. You can blame DeAndre Swift's stone hands on the lone loss all the way back in Week 1. Regarding his offensive playmakers, it's looking bleak, Detroit. Although he returned to practice Thursday, Kenny Golladay was sidelined on Friday because of a bad hip and isn't yet ready to give it a go. That's obviously bad news for Stafford, who will be playing at less than 100% with a thumb injury. And as I've discussed at length throughout the course of the entire season, this offense is light years ahead with Kenny G on the field as opposed to without him. Joining Golladay on the sidelines in street clothes will be slot man Danny Amendola, who's also nursing a bad hip, which forms a 3-man trio of Marvin Jones, rookie Quintez Cephas, and deep threat Marvin Hall. Uh-oh. After I called him out on the show a few weeks back, Jones has come alive of late and was the only pass catcher that did anything last week with 8 grabs for 96 yards and a touchdown, giving him 3 straight games with at least 1 tater. Maybe his 30-year-old legs have more juice left than I thought, and they'll be needed this Sunday. Cephas had only one catch last week and botched an absolutely brutal drop late in the first half, and Hall caught a 55-yard touchdown, but not much else. Guys, I'm really not sure Cephas is going to make it, but I guess I'll give him a little more time. I do like Hall's ability to stretch the field, though, and he is the Lions' only deep threat with Galladay out of the lineup. Sorry, fans, but Brett Perriman isn't walking through that door anytime soon. Oh, and there's more on the injury front, and this one comes a little bit out of nowhere. After escaping last week's win, seemingly without injury, and following a full practice on Wednesday, DeAndre Swift all of a sudden entered the NFL concussion protocol on Thursday, making it nearly impossible for him to suit up on Sunday, considering all the hurdles he'll have to go through to get cleared. Trust me, you and I have a better chance of passing a field sobriety test after pounding back a 12-pack of PBR than an NFL player does clearing the concussion protocol this late in the week. It's really a damn shame, too. All season long, I've been begging for Matt Poop-Tricia to give Swift the keys to the backfield, and he finally did last week, as Swift turned 21 touches into 149 total yards and a touchdown. He has clearly been the Lions' best running back, averaging a full yard per carry more than the rest of his backfield mates, and his playmaking ability as a pass catcher gives the Lions a huge offensive spark when he's out there. This will give you a chuckle. On Friday, Adrian Peterson revealed when he was told he lost his starting gig to Swift, he said, quote, "You should have done this 2 to 3 weeks ago," end quote. You think? Just one more reason Matt Poop-Tricia sucks at his job. Swift's absence will leave those backfield keys to Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson, which could possibly derail our Motor City RB Cruiser right off Telegraph and into a burst of flames. Peterson has regressed every week since week 1, and Johnson, well, hasn't looked good in a long time. Both will obviously have to step it up because you can run on the Panthers a lot easier than you can throw on them, although they've been putrid in both categories as of late. Another pass catcher suffering from injury is my boy T.J. Hawkinson, who is laboring from a toe injury, and it showed last week against Washington. The football team has been absolutely horrendous all season long against opposing tight ends, but Hawk managed only 2 catches for 13 yards, and he rotated in and out of the lineup a lot more than usual. 4-year, $22 million man Jesse James rewarded us with 2 catches for 9 yards, adding to his total of 9 catches for the season. Congratulations, Jesse! Guys, I don't want to get too in-depth with the Lions defense. I know they suck and you know they suck. Romeo Okwara did have a nice sack last week on Washington's first possession to take them out of field goal range, but after allowing only 3 points the entire first half, the quote, defense allowed the football team to score a touchdown on 3 consecutive drives en route to 24 second half points. Alex Smith, who recently had 17 surgeries on a broken leg and almost died from infection, threw for 390 yards against Matt Poop-Tricia's vaunted steel curtain. And you guessed it, not only was it a league high for Week 10, it was a career high for Smith. In all seriousness, I'm happy for Smith, but ay. Adding insult to injury were missed tackles from Jeff Okudah and Justin Coleman, and in fact, Okudah was so bad he was not in the game at all on Washington's final series. Let's not forget about the 2 crucial penalties from Desmond Trufant on that drive either, that nearly cost us the game. Trufant has been trash all season. For a 3rd overall draft pick, Okudah's play has been downright embarrassing, as he ranks 126th out of 127 eligible cornerbacks in coverage. The man couldn't cover my grandmother. I will say he's been a lot better against the run, but you don't draft a corner at 3 to see him get his jockstrap burned in coverage week in and week out. But hey, we did win the game, so I digress. No Galladay, no Swift, no Amendola, a banged-up Stafford, a banged-up Hawkinson. No problem, right?
Behind enemy lines, the Carolina Panthers.
Year 1 of the post-Cam Newton era begins in Carolina as Teddy Bridgewater takes over the helm at quarterback. And although he hasn't been as sweet as those wings I had earlier, Bridgewater isn't just viewed as a bridge quarterback by the Panthers organization, as he signed a 3-year, $63 million contract during the offseason. Teddy has put up decent numbers, ranking 8th in the NFL in passing yards and 12th in QBR, but unlike the Panthers, I don't view him as a true franchise quarterback. It was reported as recently as Thursday, Bridgewater was unlikely to play because of a bum knee, as he was seen limping around in practice. But Friday, it was reported Carolina has not given up on Teddy starting. Even if he does, he'll be at far less than 100%. Quick, I'll give you 5 seconds. Can you name any of the Panther backup quarterbacks? If you named either former XFL star PJ Walker or 2019 third-round pick Will Greer, congratulations! You win nothing! But I'm impressed if you got it. For what it's worth, Matt Patricia did tell reporters he is preparing to face off against Teddy, whatever that means. But if he's forced to sit, my money would go to Walker getting the nod at QB. Regardless of who would start in Bridgewater's absence, the Ford family shouldn't let Patricia board the team plane home if the Lions lose. Also missing in action will be stud running back Christian McCaffrey, who will miss his 8th game of the season with an AC joint sprain. McCaffrey ranked 3rd in the NFL in both rushing yards and touchdowns last season, and his unavailability creates a gaping hole in the backfield, although Mike Davis has proven he can handle the load when given the opportunity. Davis has averaged a respectable 4.2 yards per carry this season, but makes most of his noise as a pass catcher, absorbing an absurd 54 targets for 47 receptions and 290 yards out of the backfield. I'm sure he'll have a field day against the Lions defense that has allowed a league-high 18 touchdowns to opposing running backs. Every single pass catcher for Carolina has been inconsistent this season and will become even bigger wild cards if Bridgewater is forced to sit. But DJ Moore is their true number 1 and most dangerous vertical threat. Expect him to burn the Lions for at least one long gain on Sunday. As a team, the Panthers rank middle of the pack in almost every meaningful offensive category. As I said earlier, the Lions should have an easier time running on them than passing, although that may not be the case anymore with DeAndre Swift concussed. The Panthers have held opposing quarterbacks to 1 or fewer touchdowns 6 times this season, but they have been roasted for 7 touchdowns over the past 2 weeks. Attention, Adrian Peterson and Kerryon Johnson. The Panthers allow opposing running backs to rush for 4.8 yards per carry, 5th worst in the NFL. It's an encouraging stat, but I really don't know what to expect out of the Lions' backfield on Sunday. Maybe, just maybe, Adrian Peterson can cheat Father Time once again. Matt Rule begins year 1 as Carolina head coach after a 7-year stint in college, most notably the last 3 years at Baylor. He took over the program in 2016 in the middle of a sexual assault scandal and went 1-11 in year 1. But by year 3, the Bears went 11-2 and won the Sugar Bowl. That was all the Carolina Panthers needed to see as they signed Rule to a 7-year, $60 million contract back in July, which is a crazy number of both years and dollars to give to a first-time NFL head coach. It'll sure be interesting to see how it turns out, as coaches rarely last 6 years in any position in the NFL. So, in a battle of Sir Purr versus Roary the Lion, which cat will survive in a fight to the death in the Carolina jungle? Stay tuned later in the show for my prediction. We are going to take a quick 60-second commercial break here on Detroit Sports Extreme. Do not go anywhere.
Ever wondered what one of the greatest singing voices of all time sounded like, combined with Disney songs? I know I have. Time Life presents A Marvelous Disney. Some of the most classic Disney songs of all time are delivered by a musical legend in Marv Albert. Bring instant life to your home as Marv sings over 30 classic Disney hits. Both a little scared, neither one prepared. Beauty and the Beast, a whole new world, a new fantastic point of view. Yakuna Matata, what a wonderful phrase. Yonder the sea, Arabian Nights, like Arabian days. For just 5 easy payments of $29.95, a marvelous Disney can be yours. Don't delay. Call today, because there's no reason not to.
Welcome back to Detroit Sports Extreme. Here again is your new voice for Detroit Sports, Johnny Bakerstone. Now switching to basketball and the Pistons. I have to admit, I'm at a loss for words. On Wednesday during the NBA draft, I was stoked. New GM Troy Weaver, who was just signed by the Pistons last summer after spending 12 years in the Thunder organization, made a couple of shrewd moves to acquire 2 additional first-round draft picks. It was exciting to watch. Let's get some young cats in here and rebuild the right way. Enough of saying, well, if Reggie Jackson, Blake Griffin, and Andre Drummond can all stay healthy, maybe we can win 45 games and get a 4 seed. No more of that nonsense. Weaver gave up a heavily protected first-round draft pick to get the 16th pick in the draft, and traded Luke Kennard for the 18th pick. He also traded future considerations for the 38th pick. Kennard is a good shooter, but let's be honest with ourselves, he isn't in the team's long-term plans, and shouldn't be, considering the money he will demand when he becomes a free agent. It was the most action I've ever seen the Pistons make on draft night, and I liked it. I am in a position to blow this thing up and start a rebuild and acquire as many young assets as we can. The Pistons needed a point guard and took Killian Hayes at 7 overall, who is considered one of the top talents in the draft. They also drafted 2 big men later in Isaiah Stewart and Sadiq Bey. Bey is who interests me the most between the two, as he's a 3-and-D swingman that can really light it up from long range. Who knows how these guys will pan out, but you maximize your chances on hitting on players in the draft with the more draft picks you acquire. You can say what you want about the Pistons selections, but you can't be mad at the apparent attempt, at the time, to start a full-blown rebuild. That is until Friday, when the Pistons went on a free agent spending spree, signing Mason Plumlee, Jahlil Okafor, Josh Jackson, and Jeremy Grant all to contracts. I was puzzled and confused, and Plumlee's signing I hated the most. 3 years and $25 million for a guy that averages 7 points and 5 rebounds doesn't really move the needle. Okafor signed for 2 years at the veterans minimum, so whatever. But how many big men can one team have? More moves have to be coming. Jackson is a former lottery pick, so he's worth taking a chance on. And Grant is a really nice player, but 3 years and $60 million seems awfully steep for a player who averaged 12 points a game last season. The Pistons also traded for 28-year-old point guard DeLon Wright, who has a history with Dwayne Casey during their time in Toronto. That move makes a little more sense as the Pistons are in dire need of point guard help. After seemingly entering this offseason in full rebuild mode, the Pistons just tied themselves in more money for 3 more years for marginal talent, and I'm going to need to see this thing play out before I can give my full assessment. But Friday's Monopoly shopping spree wasn't a promising sight. I assume more moves are coming, as Blake Griffin and Derrick Rose could be moved literally any second. But after a very intriguing attempt to get young on Wednesday, the Pistons mostly overspent on veteran role players on Friday. Let's just give it a little more time, though, before we hit the panic alarm.
Extreme expressions.
As with every show, we take 3 calls from you, the listeners. We start this segment with the Ass Man.
Hey Johnny, it's the Ass Man. I'm sitting here watching the NBA draft, hoping that the Pistons take someone good here. Would love to see them trade up for LaMelo Ball, but I don't see that happening. Pistons never make those type of moves. I'm looking forward to the Pistons season. I'm liking what they're doing this offseason. Screw the Lions. Fuck Patricia. Fire Harbaugh. That's all I got this week. Love the show, Johnny. Hopefully I'll talk to you soon.
This was obviously sent before the Friday free agent spending spree, but Assman, the Pistons were very active and bold during the NBA draft, despite not trading up for LaMelo Ball. Our next caller is a regular mainstay here on DSC. It's Boats from the West Side.
Hey, Johnny. Boats from the West Side again. We're back, baby. We're back. 1 game under 500, going to Carolina, no Bridgewater, no McCaffrey. We got another W. We're back at 500, baby. We're going to get back in that playoff race. Wait till you see us in the hunt. Oh, I can't wait, baby.
You'll never see a fan more happy at a 4-5 record with the possible prospects of maybe going 500. Boats from the West Side at it again. Our final caller is simply known as Coach.
Hey, Johnny. Coach here. Got a fantasy football question for you. I have a trade that I've been proposed. I just want to know if you and the viewers would accept it. It's Russell Wilson for something called LaVisca Chenault and Matt Ryan. You think that's a fair trade that should go through? Let me know. Keep it up, Johnny. Great stuff.
Well, you can certainly tell Coach was on the road during that call. Coach, if there's no cahoots or shenanigans, every trade should go through. Nothing should be vetoed. Every owner views every player differently. Special thanks goes to the Assman, Boats, and Coach. If you'd like to call into the show, simply audio message us on the Detroit Sports Extreme Facebook page for a chance to be heard on next week's show.
Detroit Sports Extreme presents Michigan Moments.
This Michigan moment brings us back to November 19th, 2004, in what is simply known as the Malice at the Palace, or the Palace Brawl, or the night that Ron Artest lost his damn mind. Whatever you want to call it, it was perhaps the most infamous sports brawl in sports history, and I was one of the over 22,000 spectators that witnessed it. With the hated Indiana Pacers leading the Pistons 97-82 with less than a minute remaining in the game, Ben Wallace was fouled hard from behind by Artest, who had lost his cool more than a few times over the years. Big Ben did not like it one iota and retaliated by shoving the troubled Pacers forward right in the face. Benches cleared, and a skirmish ensued between members from both teams that lasted nearly 2 minutes. Things seemed to be subsiding, however, as Artest curiously laid on the scores table with his arms behind his head, but Pistons fan John Green was not amused and made a throw for the ages by tossing a plastic cup from the stands that amazingly hit Artest in the chest. He immediately bolted into the stands, but mistakenly attacked the wrong fan that he thought was responsible. What followed next was a fight between players, mainly Artest, Steven Jackson, and Jermaine O'Neal, and fans that lasted several minutes, and included punches being exchanged, and objects such as folding chairs being thrown onto the court. After the melee, the NBA suspended 9 players for a total of 146 games without pay, resulting in $11 million lost in salary. 5 players were charged with assault, and 5 fans also faced assault charges and were banned from attending Pistons home games for life, although these days that's probably a good thing. The incident also forced the NBA to increase security between players and fans and limit the sale of alcohol at games. But I've yet to see that restriction, as I've never been cut off once at a Pistons game. On a side note, Tim Donaghy, who resigned from the NBA 2 years later for allegations that he bet on games that he officiated, was one of the game's 3 referees. It was a wild night for sure, and one that is incredibly now 16 years old.
Bird of the Week.
I have to give this week's Bird of the Week award to Lions kicker Matt Prater, who, in addition to nailing a 59-yard game-winning field goal last week against Washington, also hit a 53 and 37-yard attempt. His 5th career field goal of 59 or more yards is now the most in NFL history, and his 75% conversion rate on field goals of 50 or more yards remains the best in NFL history. Prater was named NFC Special Teams Player of the Week on Wednesday for the 2nd time this season and 12th time in his career, and has proven time and again he is one of the most clutch kickers in the game.
Turd of the Week.
Jesse James. This is just a friendly reminder that James is making over $5 million a season as a backup tight end, and even when his name is called, as was the case last week with a hobbled TJ Hawkinson, he does nothing. He had only 2 catches in his extended run last Sunday, and has only 9 for the season. In 25 games with the Lions, James has only 25 catches and 1 touchdown. Simply put, James was a horrible signing by Boob Quinn.
Stat of the Week.
4. That's how many free agent signings Pistons GM Troy Weaver made on Friday in what was a crazy free agent spending spree to watch. Mason Plumlee, Jahlil Okafor, Josh Jackson, and Jeremy Grant were all signed within hours. Oh, and they also traded for point guard DeLon Wright as well. A team thought to be rebuilding, the Pistons sure spent a lot of money on marginal role players, and quite frankly, I was puzzled by some of the signings, in particular Plumlee. I will have to let the dust settle and see what other moves are made before I can fully assess what just happened on Friday, but it was an eyebrow raiser for sure.
Extreme Sportsbook. Sponsored by the Johnny Bakerstone Law Firm. Going through your 3rd divorce like Johnny? Well, make some money off these games to help cover the bill.
Michigan minus 10.5 at Rutgers.
How could anyone in their right mind take Michigan after what's unfolded this season in Ann Arbor? If you listen to my emergency podcast on Jim Harbaugh after the loss to Michigan State, you already know my thoughts on him, but even I didn't think it would get this bad. Michigan has been outscored 87-32 the last 2 weeks to Indiana and Wisconsin, as that Joe Milton hype train has officially derailed off the tracks, crashed, and burned. Give me the home dog Scarlet Knights and the 10.5.
Detroit Lions minus 2.5 at Carolina Panthers.
Yes, the Lions are banged up, but so are the Panthers, as they will be without Christian McCaffrey and perhaps Teddy Bridgewater. I think this spread changes immensely if Bridgewater winds up active on Sunday, but Vegas is telling us they don't think that will be the case, as the Lions were the ones getting the points earlier in the week. As sick as it is for me to forecast, give me the Lions laying the 2.5 against a Panthers team that is 1-4 against the spread at home this season. If Matthew Stafford can't beat an XFL quarterback by more than a field goal, we have bigger problems than we thought.
Atlanta Falcons plus 3.5 at New Orleans Saints.
Taysom Hill makes his debut as a starting quarterback Sunday as Drew Brees sits out with broken ribs and a punctured lung. Ouch! Although he is great as a gadget player, I'm in see it before I believe it mode with Hill. The Falcons have been good since canning Dan Quinn, going 3-1 under new head coach Raheem Morris, and are 7-1 against the spread in their past 8 road games. Give me the birds, baby!
Pittsburgh Steelers minus 10.5 at Jacksonville Jaguars.
I think the Steelers defense will be way too much for Jags' 6th-round rookie quarterback Jake Luton to handle in this one. Simply put, Jacksonville just isn't good. How's that for analysis? The Steel Curtain has covered in 6 of their past 7 games and improved to 7-2 against the spread on the year, which is tied for best in the NFL.
New York Jets plus 9.5 at Los Angeles Chargers.
Joe Flacco and Adam Gase traveling across the country to face Justin Herbert? No thanks. I think Herbert goes wild in this one against the Jets' laughingstock of a defense, as the Lightning Bolts win big against the Jets team that is 0-4 against the spread, both on the road and as a road underdog this season.
Green Bay Packers plus 1.5 at Indianapolis Colts.
It almost seems like Vegas knows something we don't, giving Aaron Rodgers points, but I'm gonna take him. Despite going against the top-ranked defense in the NFL, I think Rodgers outduels Rivers in what should be a joy to watch. It still doesn't feel right looking at Rivers in that Colts jersey, though. The Cheeseheads are 5-1 outright and against the spread as regular season road underdogs in the Matt LaFleur era.
Fantasy Football Extreme!
Starting with the Lions game, despite his high price tag in daily, take a look at Panthers running back Mike Davis. As you know, Christian McCaffrey is out, and he's going against a Lions defense that gives up the most fantasy points per game to opposing running backs. No defense is allowing more receiving yards per game to running backs than your Detroit Lions, and that's the bread and butter of Davis's game. If you're looking for a cheaper option, Marvin Jones has to be in play with Kenny Golladay out of the lineup. He's been red hot of late, scoring a touchdown in 3 straight games, and goes against a Panther defense that has given up 7 receiving touchdowns the past 2 weeks. He's only the 24th most expensive option at wide receiver in daily. Marvin Hall should be considered as well, as he's just the 49th most expensive. Now for the other games.
Quarterback Justin Herbert, Los Angeles Chargers.
This isn't some groundbreaking announcement, as Herbert has been awesome literally the entire season as a rookie in La La Land, but I think he goes bananas this week against the Jets defense that has been reeling all season long, especially in the last month. He's every bit worth his third most expensive price tag for quarterbacks in daily. As a bonus nugget, if you want to go a cheaper route, Falcons quarterback Matt Ryan has to be in play for a game that sees the third highest over-under of the week. Ryan gets Calvin Ridley back this week too, and the QB can be had at just the 8th most expensive QB price tag.
Running back Damian Harris, New England Patriots.
Harris has ran for at least 71 yards in each of his past 3 games and goes against the Texans defense that regularly gets gashed on the ground as they cough up the 2nd most fantasy points per game and most rushing yards per game to opposing running backs. Harris is just the 22nd most expensive running back in daily.
Wide receiver Marquise Brown, Baltimore Ravens.
This one comes more on a hunch, but I think Brown is due for a big performance on Sunday. In fact, the entire Ravens passing offense is due for a big performance. The Titans give up the 3rd most receiving yards and 4th most fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers, and I think Brown has his best day of the season. He's just the 18th most expensive wide receiver in daily.
Tight end Austin Hooper, Cleveland Browns.
He was bad last week in return from injury, but give me some Hooper against the Philadelphia Eagles defense that gives up the most fantasy points per game and the 6th most receiving yards per game to opposing tight ends. He's just the 10th most expensive tight end in daily. That will conclude this edition of Detroit Sports Extreme. If you like the show, please follow us on our Facebook page at Detroit Sports Extreme. Have a great weekend, Detroit, and go Lions!